Thank you so much for this opportunity to be here. Honestly, I'm truly honored. Happy Independence Day, Nigeria. And thank you to Pastor Boju and my sister, Pastor Tony, for all that you do, and for this great platform that you have created. You know, many people ask me, why are you coming to Nigeria? You didn't plan this trip. I said, Pastor Boju rarely asks for anything. He's just such a giver. So if he says jump, I say how high. But it's also a privilege to be here among some of my mentors and dear friends and partners in the pursuit of a better Nigeria. I've decided to focus my intervention today on the topic of becoming narrative changers. Not just because this is a passion of mine, but because we need this more than ever before. I have a few slides that I will show as we progress, but really will engage more in storytelling. So what are narratives and why do they matter? Narratives are more than just stories. They include hard infrastructure. They build identities. The concept of national identity is shaped by collective memory, as we just heard from a very dynamic previous speaker. By collective aspirations, what is the future and the vision we have for Nigeria? Narratives define the we. They answer who belongs, what values we uphold, and what role we play in the world. A strong, inclusive narrative builds pride and resilience. A fractured or imposed narrative can fuel division and fuel decline. So what's the narrative of Nigeria today? What's the narrative of Africa today? This is one that I've carried alongside with me for a very long time. See, I was born in Enugu, Nigeria, to academic professors, and was a child of most of what many of the younger generation don't recall, which is a military era. Growing up on the University of Nigeria campus, the professors were targeted. And we never actually planned to go to university abroad. That was not part of the plan. My parents believed that we should all go to the University of Nigeria. After all, we went to Federal Government College, Enugu, University Primary School, nursery school there. But the truth is, things were tough. Similar to how tough they are today. And there was a lot that we could complain about. However, when we think about those narratives, it seems like they have stuck in our psyche as Nigerians. And while oftentimes we talk about ourselves in a very negative light, we often don't imagine the cost of that conversation on our country. And at the One campaign, one of the things we have taken on is this concept of narratives. And I just want to show you some of how this translates into numbers, right? Oftentimes you don't think about narratives and how lopsided narratives also affect us, right? They drain our resources. They have financial implications because they erode trust. They fragment societies and they keep Africa in this cycle of dependency. Narratives actually translate into financial implications. And so what are the costs of these negative narratives? What are the costs of inaction? As we think about it, one of our partner organizations and friends of ours, Africa No Filter, actually has quantified the cost of negative reporting. Just reporting on elections to Africa at $4.2 billion. Now, that might not seem like a lot of money to you, but when we think about it, the fact that our sovereigns pay 5 times what sovereigns in other parts of the world pay for debt might then resonate with some of you who are in the entrepreneurs in the ecosystem. What are the requirements? When we talk about how much we pay for loans in our countries, how much our governments pay for loans, we realize that it's a big part of it is this negative narrative, and we call it a risk premium associated with investing in Africa. In fact, when we compare our sovereign bonds, just interest rates that African governments pay for debt, the average sovereign euro bond is about 9.8%. Compare that to what Europeans pay, under 3%. That's why about 30 African countries are in debt distress because of the cost of debt. Now, is the risk in Nigeria higher than the risk in name any country? in Latin America, or name a country in the Middle East, or name a country in South Asia. Many of these countries actually would be at the same risk premium. However, ours is even more pronounced. And as I've spent time with governments and I've spent time with rating agencies like the S&P 500, Moody's, etc., they say they not only look at data shared from our country, but they also interview people to say, what is your perspective of your country? What do you think the future of the country holds? And more than often, what do Nigerians say? What do other Africans say? Do we say the future is bright? Oftentimes we don't. We say the future is dim, right? So oftentimes it's like a family. How many of you can say, well, my sister did this, my brother did this? When you go outside your family, do you say bad things about your family? Rarely. But in our context, the opposite is often the case. Now, what do I want you to take away from this talk? I want you to become narrative changers. I want you to watch not only what you say, how you say it, but also how you change your narratives in the public domain. Because this is not only a burden for us in this generation, it's a burden our children will carry unless we get it right. These debts are still being negotiated today. This risk premium is one we carry. It affects the cost of doing business in our countries. It affects infrastructure costs in our countries. It affects the loan that our countries continue to take. And debt is not bad, but debt negotiated at a rate that is way more exaggerated than it needs to be is unfair and is unacceptable. So there's some steps we must take. The first is that we must become narrative changers. And to do this, you have to change your mindset. Now, this is personal for me because I was not always a narrative changer. I actually was one of those people who grew up in the Andrew era. Andrew, I'm checking out. If you're my age, you know what I'm talking about. There was a guy called Andrew, and there was a commercial they used to show on NTA where Andrew was leaving the country, and someone pulled him back and said, Andrew, Nigeria is your country. You have no other one. We must stay here and salvage it together. If you remember that, raise your hand. You're dating yourself. Very few in the audience. Also, New York singing the song Nigeria Go Survive, right? Or the popular one, another jingle, me, I love my country, I love my land and people, everything is there for Nigeria. Make we join hands to make Nigeria better. I like her. Do you remember that song? Some of us do. However, many of us were checking out. I mentioned that I checked out at 16. And when I was leaving, I actually did not plan to come back. Why? Because our professors' salaries had not been paid for months. In fact, my mother saved $250 to give me, took the bus from Enugu here with my best friend, and that was the only money my parents ever sent me, $250. The whole time, I was only 16. In fact, by 17, I started sending money home because they were not paying professors. At the time, professors' salaries were $10,000. 10,000 naira. And my parents went to Cornell University, Ivy Leagues, first, second, and third degree. So you can imagine 10,000 naira and having 5 children. Of course, 10,000 naira was much more valuable then, but still, it was not enough to cater for 5 children. So I was checking out because I said, I have to take care of my parents, right? And I started working and going to school at the same time. And yes, there was crime, right? And yes, there was austerity measures imposed by some of the Bretton Woods institutions. But then I got out there and I recognized I was Nigerian, right? People said, where are you from? You have a strange accent, right? That's where it started. And then the negative narrative started coming too. Like, oh, you're Nigerian. My mom used to say, finish your dinner, there are starving children in Biafra. That hit me like a brick, right? Because even though we were relatively a middle-class professor family, I did not remember starving children in my backyard, right? And I said, well, that's not my reality. Oh, you have phones in Nigeria? Oh, really? You know? So I started realizing that when negative narratives hit you, you become protective, right, of your people and of your culture. And then you start fighting back to change those narratives. I still remember as I built my confidence about my country and I learned more about the history of my people, that I also became critical of some of the political leadership. And I went on a global conference once where I actually challenged some of our political leaders in public. And a friend who became a mentor, but a senior sister, pulled me aside and said, Ndidi, you're an ambassador for this country. When you get on platforms, don't say bad things about Nigeria. And I said at that time, I was in my 20s, very fiery. I said, you know, I have to speak the truth. I have to call them out. And the more I got older, I realized you can call them out in private. When you're on public platforms, in global platforms, do not call out bad behavior because you're reinforcing this divisive nature of Nigeria. So I am being honest that I had to change my own mindset. So tell your neighbor, change your mindset. Things are tough, but where there are challenges, there are opportunities. Just like we see people fleeing our country, there are people flying into our country because they see opportunities that we have left on the table. I still count how many people are on planes when I'm flying Ethiopian Airlines back to Nigeria. I see Asians, right? Some are coming now for medical tourism. Some are coming for prayer. Some are coming for investment opportunities. Whatever it is, they are coming when you are fleeing. Right? So how do you change your narratives? How do you change your mindset? First, you reflect on the power of your words and your thoughts. What is the root cause of those words and thoughts? Where did Nigeria hurt you? Acknowledge the failings of the country. They are failings. I'm not going to lie about them. But balance them with the realities of our time. Right? My family has experienced their own share of pain. Some of you might have seen the talk that Mazo and I gave about when you were shot, when I was 9 months pregnant in Lagos. It was not an easy decision to go through that and return again. But God used that painful experience to actually birth 4 businesses that you saw when we were being introduced. And those businesses are making a difference in Nigeria. They're thriving. They're paying our children's school fees at home and abroad. And they show that when you give this country an opportunity, you can excel. Ace Foods is producing the best spices and snacks from Nigeria to the world. And when we started this company, many people said, why don't you just import and repackage? And we said, we have the best soils in Africa. We have the best spices in Africa. Why can't we produce for Africa and for the world? Today, Ace Foods is doing that. Not only is it creating jobs, providing a warm meal and health insurance, but we are not even running it. We have a dynamic, proudly Nigerian team running it and doing excellent work. Sahel Consulting, Sahel Capital, and African Food Change Makers. So I'm saying, I know Nigeria has hurt some of you, right? And some of us. But you can heal from it. There is no country that has not hurt its people. Second, challenge your stereotypes about yourself, about others. What do you scorn and what do you celebrate? What values do you have and what values do you live by? When I started Leap Africa, I was 28 years old, and I started with one of our programs focused on patriotism. Imagine going around Nigeria teaching young people about patriotism. Why did I include that in our curriculum? Because I had seen that in Germany, I had seen that in Rwanda, I had seen that in the United States. The United States curriculum is filled with patriotism education. To be proud of who you are, to recognize your military, to recognize your sports stars, to celebrate them. If you go to an athletic event in the United States, it is all about patriotism. So I started a curriculum on patriotism, teaching people about our Constitution, why they should care their rights and responsibilities, and why we're more united when we can be more united when we trust each other. And I remember taking a class one day myself after the curriculum was developed, and we always asked, what stereotypes do you have about other Nigerians? I heard it all. Igbos love money. Igbos will kill for money. I was shocked. Igbos are traders. That was one I heard here in this part of the world. And I was quite alarmed. Number one, growing up, I didn't know any trader. I grew up in University of Nigeria, Enugu campus. We had intellectuals, right? Professors from Oxford, Cambridge, who left the best schools and came back to serve their nation, who believed in Nigeria, who were patriotic, who taught teachers from all over the world, who actually
spoke multiple languages because many of them had also taught at the University of Ibadan when he was affiliated with Oxford. My next door neighbor was an Igbo man from Onitsha, married to a Yoruba woman. So we grew up in a detribalized Nigeria. Many campuses across Nigeria were like that. And I went to Federal Government College in Enugu. So imagine hearing that Igbos are traders and will do anything for money. So I challenged the young lady and I said, I'm Igbo, proudly Igbo, by the way, I speak Igbo. Not all Igbos will love money. I have a non-profit. Look at how much I'm getting paid. She said, but you're different. You're half white. We have to challenge those stereotypes. When we talk about other ethnicities, our children listen. What are they learning from us? Think about some of the best teachers you had in school. What were their ethnicity? Or when you've gone to the hospital, the best doctors, did you care whether they were Igbo, Yoruba, Hausa, or Efik? Did you just want the best doctor? Or when you get on a plane in Nigeria, are you praying for the best pilot, or you say, I want a Yoruba pilot? I mean, let us challenge our stereotypes. Ultimately, merit, integrity, and excellence has no hiding place. It does not matter where you are from in Nigeria, what your ethnicity is, if you deliver excellent work. In all the companies Mazo and I have started, I can tell you, integrity has and excellence are the deciding factor. We do not care whether you're Yoruba, Igbo, Hausa, Efik. Come to the table with your best self. So challenge your neighbor. Say, your neighbor, change your mindset. To change your mindset and become a narrative changer, you also have to take a global perspective. Oftentimes, we criticize our country. We say Nigeria is so this, so that. I'm not even going to use those words. But corruption is universal. Where there are no systems or structures, corruption thrives. Right? Fraud is universal. Where there are no systems or structures, where there is no punishment, it thrives. Trust me, people pay their tickets now in the United States because you get a picture, an email that says, you've just run a red light. Here is a picture of your car and the time. Challenge it if you can with alternative facts. If you don't pay by this date, it's $100 now. If you don't pay by next week, it'll be $200. Will you pay? The next time they catch you on the road, how much will it be? $200. Next time, they'll take your car and impound many. But we don't know our history, we don't know our culture, and we don't know that schools are naming their fields after our people, right? And doing that Center for Memories just opened my eyes to the brilliance. Our first exhibition was Igbo contributions to Nigeria at the world. And I specifically put that as the first exhibition because I felt it was so important for our children to know our contributions to Nigeria and the world. We have a Center for Memories here in Lagos. J.K. Randall has started, right? We need Center for Memories across the country, celebrating our history and our culture. Now, it's really important that we also remember what is good and educate ourselves about what is good. I think I'm going forward, right? Or backward, sorry. There are lots of good stories to share. So many have talked about Chris Ohiri, but what about our booming creative industry? I don't know if you've seen the slides. Our Grammy Award winners. We love Afrobeats. In fact, I was in South Africa the other day talking to a young Zimbabwean girl, and she was like, I'm not proud to be Zimbabwean, but being Nigerian is a flex. I was like, wow. I said, why? Why is it a flex? Because when I lived in South Africa over 20 years ago, people said, don't say you're Nigerian, don't say you're Nigerian, say you're American. Now, it is a flex to say I'm Nigerian. Why? Because of Afrobeats, because of fashion, because of our designers, because of our artists, because Afrobeat music is the #1 music in many, many parts of Africa and many parts of the world. Because we have the youngest population, our young people are so dynamic, so intelligent, so brilliant, and that they're the workforce for the future. I always joke that if Nigerians decided not to work, the NHS in the UK would shut down. Many, many hospital systems around the United States would shut down. That makes me proud. It makes me proud. Just on Sunday, one of my daughters in DC, adopted many children who have come from Nigeria to go to school, had to go to the ER. Her doctor was Nigerian. I said, keep making us proud, right? That's a flex, right? Am I using the right language? It's a flex. And guess what? data has just come out by the Giving Pledge and many others saying that Nigerians are the most generous people in the world. That's a flex. So we actually give. 72% of Nigerians give. It doesn't matter the amount we give. We give to each other. We give during times of loss. We give during times of joy. If you've ever gone through a loss of a loved one, the way that people gather around you is unprecedented. That makes me proud. My brother was born in Enugu, the whole of Enugu came to our house, 4 girls and 1 boy, right? Came to celebrate. The times of joy, people celebrate. We're generous. There are lots of things that we can be proud of as Nigerians. But we have to do better, right? And this is where you have to change your ecosystem. I actually think that every single person should walk into their place of work and demonstrate excellence and say, I'm a narrative changer. Imagine arriving in Nigeria and the customs officer says to you, welcome home. You know, when I was on a board in India, and Godrej is one of the oldest companies in India, phenomenal company, values-driven company. And I remember landing in India, and the customs officer said, why are you here, or immigration officer? I said, I'm here for a board meeting with Godrej. And he said to me, oh, I think Godrej is such an amazing company. Should I buy more stock? And I said, the immigration officer knows about this company and wants to ask me for my professional advice on stocks. I said, the day I arrive in Nigeria and they're not asking me, Madam, bless me. Madam, you look good today, bless me. Or stand aside, what did you bring for us? Right? Instead of saying, welcome home, and oh, what do you do? Oh, you're in this? Oh, should I invest? You understand? Does that show a change in mindset? A narrative changer? Yes. I love that our schools all over Nigeria celebrate Independence Day and children dress up. But I challenge you to do the same thing in your companies. And we started at Sahel. We actually celebrate National Day. We bring our costumes, our culture, our history, and we share with each other the best things about where we're from, but also the best thing, and we learn from each other. It's such a beautiful thing to celebrate. There's diversity, there's culture, and there's unity. We also have to ensure that we celebrate our diaspora and make it easy for our diaspora. And this also means that we have to put ambassadors in our G7 countries. I said I won't talk about this, but I have to. We need ambassadors placed in our G7 countries. It makes my job representing Africa easier. And we need the best of Nigeria representing us at the highest levels. Okay? We need to ensure that our embassies are welcoming to Nigerians and non-Nigerians alike. People should not wait for months for their passports. Our embassies should serve as places to learn about trade and investment and culture and partnership with Nigeria. This is really important. I want to call out and celebrate the diaspora groups that are already doing this, like the Nigerian Physicians Association in America, in the UK. They come here, they give their time, their talent, their treasure. They're so committed to flying back to support. They're so proud. And for every school I visit all over the world, I see second and third generation Nigerians excited to be part of Nigeria, wanting to give back, wanting to work here, wanting to live here. Let's embrace them. They are an asset for us. Our diaspora an asset. How do we elevate voices? It's a long game. Changing narratives is not easy, but we can do it, starting with one person at a time, one ecosystem at a time. And then number 3, we have to change narratives by celebrating and changing narratives in the global ecosystem. I've talked about yourself first, your sphere of influence, and now the global ecosystem. We recently looked at IFC data for 3 decades, and we celebrated with Hoover Institute and Stanford to show that investment from IFC in Africa has a 6x return relative to the S&P 500. How many of you have seen that data? We need data like this that showcases that investing in Africa is a good business, that it has a huge return on investment. Changing narratives on the ecosystem means that we have to leverage every opportunity we have to celebrate what is good about Africa. Through African Food Change Makers and my work with Sahel Consulting, we had the opportunity to partner with Goalkeepers and Bill Gates. And when they asked me to curate a section on agriculture, I said, can we have some key influencers make some food, African food, on a global stage? And we had Bill Gates making fonio, which is acha, with Chef Pierre Thiem and some other celebrities. This was amazing. The first time, and I had to ask Bill Gates, when was the last time you cooked? And he said it's been a long time. But having us curate such events was fantastic. Similarly, we've elevated jollof. How many of you love jollof? But guess what? Nigerian jollof, is it Ghanaian jollof, is it Senegalese jollof? So we actually created jollof wars. We have jollof cooking competitions. And for the first time, people are learning, what is jollof? Why should I know about jollof? Which one is better? And that competition is helping us elevate Nigerian food and change narratives of Africa from being a hungry child to a successful female entrepreneur, to saying that we have no food, to saying we have the best food in the world. We've also started telling positive stories, elevating cola nuts. I talked about this the last time I was here. How many people love Coca-Cola? Or know Coca-Cola? You don't have to love it. Coca-Cola was made with cola nut from West Africa. That's why it's called Coca-Cola. Many people don't know that, right? Or that okra is an Igbo word, and that when you use that word, you speak my language. I say that everywhere, right? I'm so proud, it's my flex. And that continues. So as we think about the greatest contributions, we change our ecosystem. Now think about this one. Africa No Filter has taken on this campaign, which I love, saying that the maps we have in the world do not represent our continent. That actually they are false maps. And the African Union has taken on their campaign. That actually the true size of Africa is actually fully misrepresented. That you can put China in Africa, you can put the United States in Africa, France, Spain, Italy, Germany, Peru, India, and you still have space. We need to redraw those maps. And that is a campaign that Moki, who is a Nigerian running Africa No Filter, has taken on. And it's one that makes me so proud and one that I'm excited to support. Similarly, this is the first year Africa is leading the G20. The first year. One campaign fought for Africa to host the G20 and for African Union to have a seat at the G20. And we've taken on the cost of capital at this G20. I've been to South Africa twice already. Our team has taken on the fact that we need fair financing for Africa and that we must redress this issue of a risk premium on Africa. And the South African government has adopted it as a campaign issue. So continue to fight with us so that we can get fairer financing on this continent. We've also decided to leverage Africa Day across the G7, where we celebrate the return on investment for partnering with Africa. And I encourage you to join with us. We're changing the narrative saying Africa is not risk, Africa is a return, right? That yes, there's risk, but you can hedge risk. You can use instruments to hedge risk. People do that all the time. And we are going to continue to tell positive narratives about our continent. But we need your help. And I want to start ending, and I want to show you two videos. Why do we need your help? Pastor Boji started with AI, right? When you look at current AI content, only 2% of AI content today is African content. That is unacceptable. You know why it's so low? Because we don't produce content. We don't produce content. We don't write. We don't record. We don't publish. We don't put out narratives, alternative narratives. We don't tell our stories. In fact, I'd love someone to take just funeral brochures of all the great Nigerians who have died and even digitize it and put it on the internet. Because you see the rich history, the impact, the stories that we've heard this morning, they're not anywhere on the internet. Of Wikipedia, only 2% of wiki editors are from Africa. We need to change that. We need to get the content out there because otherwise we're not represented well. In fact, if we're not represented well, we're what? Misrepresented. And that is unacceptable. And so we've been partnering with a few very, very amazing creators. And I want to show you what they're doing. The one team is partnering with one amazing creator. I don't know how many of you know this amazing woman. She's called Charity. How many of you know her? Okay, I'll play this video and I'll tell you a bit about her. Can we play the video, please? Can you play it from your end?
Oh, my God. I love that accent. What is that? Is that African? Is it African?
Nigerian.
Really? Can I have your charger, please? So exotic. I love it. Wait, I have so many questions. How did you get here from Africa? Did you like swim? Oh, and also, how did you get a phone?
Did you just buy it when you got here? You do know that without Africa, you wouldn't have a phone, right?
Literally, over half of the world's cobalt, crucial for your smartphone batteries and your electric vehicles, come from the DRC, which is in Central Africa, by the way. In fact, we even have our own made in Africa smartphones. So the next time you go to grab your phone and see something negative about Africa, take a minute to actually reflect and realize that without us, you probably wouldn't have that phone. Wow, that's really interesting. Yeah, unfortunately, when you tell one side of the story, the world gets the wrong idea. Africans aren't just participants in the economy. We are literally transforming it. And that's why I'm teaming up with the One campaign this Africa Day to just flip the script and celebrate a continent full of culture and innovation and even opportunities. But you missed my first question though. Like, how did you get here from Africa? Did you like swim? I want to know. You know what, Natasha? I did swim. Yes, in fact, I swam all the way from the River Nile to this place, and it took me 3 days of fast swimming to get here, and that's how I got to your country. Yeah.
So, for those who don't know this amazing young lady, she actually started producing her own content because she applied for jobs in radio stations in Nigeria after graduating from university, and she was told, your accent is too, what's the right word? Local. Local. Can you imagine? So guess what? She started producing content using satire to change narratives. So you think money grows on trees? Let me show you. Let me go and pluck leaves and walk around the tree, and it will convert to money. And when the team first told me about her, because I actually didn't know her, I was like, why would you partner with someone doing satire? But when I met her, where did I meet her? Davos at the World Economic Forum. Who brought her? TikTok. She's one of the leading influencers from Africa on TikTok. You need to give her a round of applause. She has taken all the negative narratives and she debunks them using satire. And she's making such an impact. People ask her the strangest questions. They challenge when she says the reality. And she engages them on social media. This is a narrative changer who I'm really, really proud of. And we need more of her in our country and in our continent. And then I want to share with you another great narrative changer who uses poetry. And we partnered with her, the One campaign, on this piece.
They say Africa is risk. Interesting. But stay with me. You mean Lagos, where fintech rises before the sun? Or Joburg, where Charles LeBron did learn walk? Or Dakar, where rhythm breaks the rules? Risk? No. This is return. Return on belief. On the girl in Enugu sketching dreams with charcoal. On the boy in Soweto coding futures from a shared laptop. And a Nigerian musician making dreams from a stolen laptop. On the market woman in Kumasi who knows profit without spreadsheets. On justice. For once. We know how to build real bruises. Remix scarcity into rhythm. We stretch coins into companies, our sweat, blood, and bodies. We take what the world throws away and say, not so fast, Abiku. We reinvent. You still don't get it. This is not aid. This is alignment. You don't donate to us. You partner, or you get left behind. Because the continent moves quietly, powerfully, unapologetically. So your hesitation is your loss. Because what we call hustle, you call innovation 20 years later. We are not waiting for green lights. We are building roads on red. We are not fragile. We are anti-fragile. Our wounds became weapons. Our delays became data. Our waiting made us wise. Africa doesn't need your charity. Africa is your clarity. On where the future breathes. On where the world resets. On where value multiplies like cassava after rain. So if you fear risk, don't come. But if you're looking for a return, on imagination, on resilience, on tomorrow, welcome. Welcome to Africa.
And this amazing Nigerian poet is partnering with us to change narratives about our continent, about our countries, about us. So my brothers and sisters, my mothers and fathers, history is waiting. History is waiting for Nigeria to rise into its full calling. History is waiting for us to step into the narrative of the vision we want to create for this country. One rooted in our complexity as a people, in our dynamism, in our innovation, in our future. A future that we deserve, a future we must build for our children. So as Nigeria marks its 25th birthday today, 65th birthday today, I reflect, and I'm just going to end with two quotes. The first one is actually by someone I really celebrate, Christopher Collady, and he once told a story. He said, I grew up singing the song, Jesus Loves Me, this I know. And I said, one day, he said, I asked Jesus, you loved me so much, why did you make me Nigerian? You could have made me Swiss, you could have made me German, whatever. And Jesus said, I made you Nigerian because I need you for such a time like this. It wasn't a mistake that you were born Nigerian, that you have Nigeria in your blood, that you were set apart to transform this nation. And we hear this message from Pastor Oju every Sunday. The second is from a young African speaking to a president. And he said, I'm no longer asking God to grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change. I'm asking the Almighty to grant me the wisdom and courage to change the things I cannot accept. I cannot accept as a Nigerian that my passport is not respected. I cannot accept that I need to fight to get entry into other countries. I cannot accept that I have to pay 5 times what other countries pay for debt because of a risk premium that is unfair, that's linked to a bias. I cannot accept that I'm often considered one of the worst places to be born in. I cannot accept that my life expectancy is in the 50s or early 60s. I cannot accept that more women die during childbirth in my country than many other parts of the world. I cannot accept that. And that's why I am asking the Almighty to grant me the courage and wisdom to change the things I cannot accept. My prayer today is that as we celebrate this 65th birthday, that we have the courage and wisdom to be narrative changers, to change our mindsets, to change our ecosystem, and to change global narratives. Join me in saying amen to that prayer.
I have never done, you may be seated, I have never done this in the history of platform since 2007. I want to say that Ndidi's speech has defined what platform is about. All right? I want people to put your hands together and please, what she has said here, all right, should be caught up and spread around this country. It took courage to give that speech. That is powerful. God bless you.